And so joining us now to discuss all of the latest developments in the region are Ambassador Dani Ayalon, former Israeli ambassador to the United States and chairman of Silver Road Capital Group, and Brigadier General Relik Shafir, former Air Force Base commander. Thank you both for joining.
Pleasure.
Thank you.
So, Ambassador Ayalon, we'll start with you. You know, we continue to see these exchanges between the United States and the Islamic Republic. Talks have been ongoing for a long time now, but it seems like the Islamic regime has not really changed its ways at all, and it's simply, you know, stalling in the talks. So it seems like we're stuck in a limbo of sorts. What is your analysis now that we've reached this, 100 days of conflict?
Well, unfortunately, Lidar, at this point, the decisions are not in our hands. It's not a normal situation that a sovereign country, especially under attacks, which needs to exercise its right for self-defense, has to get the orders or to get approvals from another country, namely in this case Washington D.C. and President Trump. In this case, the Ayatollahs of Iran has gained a major strategic asset here, where they, on the one hand, they linked the war in Iran to the war with Hezbollah, something that has never been before. And on the other hand, they are also, through pressure on the United States, they tie Israel's hands. For instance, we cannot use the full extent of our military power and all our means in case to thwart and stop Hezbollah attacks. And the sad result is that we have casualties. Israeli soldiers and also Israeli civilians.
And I do want to get to that point in just a minute. Brigadier General Shafir, I do want to hear from you sort of the same question. You know, we've reached this 100-day mark of this conflict, at least the latest round of this conflict. So what's your situation of, what's your analysis of the security situation here in Israel and the region 100 days in? Has this war improved Israel's security?
Well, it depends if you look tactically or strategically. If we go with a strategic view, the main threat to Israel has been, for quite some time, the nuclear threat doomsday that the Iranians have threatened us with. And that seems to be taking care of itself in the sense that President Trump is insisting and has taken upon himself to remove that threat from the area. So as far as that is concerned, I think the situation has improved a lot. What the Iranians have done, and this is my personal thinking, is they will eventually cave in on the nuclear question, but while doing that, they will try to gain on all other fronts, which is the proxy front, their Hormuz Strait front, and their ballistic missile program. So while they've taken quite a beating, in the long term, if they are able to forgo their nuclear program, but gain the position of a local power, being able to subdue its neighbors and keep pressure on Israel through the existence of Hezbollah, I think this is what they're aiming for, and they're willing to take a beating, and I think they are looking forward and seeing that President Trump is really trying to get out of this situation. And if he swallows the bait, so to speak, they're giving in on the nuclear program, they will stay with most of what they wanted in their hands.
And Dan, turning to you, President Trump, despite his threats, he's made it very clear he has no intention of restarting this conflict. At least that's what it seems. He's made threats, but so far he's done everything to avoid a return to war. And it seems that while the U.S. and Israel were in lockstep, today there is some strain. You mentioned the fact, that decisions in Jerusalem now run through Washington. What do you think about the status of relations between Jerusalem and Washington today?
Well, strategically, we still have the same interests, and the question is on the means to reach those targets. And the purpose, of course, is first and foremost to rid Iran from its nuclear capabilities. And first and foremost, of course, is the 440 kilograms of enriched material to 60%, which is almost weapon grade. And of course, this is not enough. You have to also take care of the entire infrastructure. But right now, the negotiations are bogged down. The Iranians seems to defy the U.S. and they believe the time runs in their favor. On the other hand, we see a president which undergoes a lot of political pressure. The past week has not been a good week for the president, even within his own party, within members of the Republican Party. They were voting against his wishes, and actually they voted to curb the operations in the Gulf. Although this is not effective in a meaningful way, but symbolically it strengthens Iran. And I think also Trump made a major, he misspoke when he had 2 days ago a interview, I think it was with NBC, when he was asked why don't they come to the negotiation table, and he said because they're strong. And this is not what he has said so far. And when he says he's strong, even though they're not, the perception in the region is that they are, and it also emboldens them. So I think a lot has to be corrected in the negotiation between Iran and the United States. It seems like right now the Iran has the upper hand, although they have severely were beaten on the battlefield and militarily, although they are on the verge of economic collapse. And it seems like the U.S. is not using all its levers against Iran.
And Relik, following up on that point, we do keep hearing from the U.S. president, despite saying that Iran is strong, that Iran's military capabilities have been devastated. He constantly says their navy's at the bottom of the ocean, and so forth. But on the other hand, we hear assessments that Iran has, largely sort of regrouped. They've rebuilt their ballistic missile capabilities to some extent. What can you tell us about the status and the capabilities of the Iranian regime today?
I think, yes, I'm sure that General Shafir is in a better position to discuss the Iranian the residual ballistic capabilities. But in any case, everything goes back to the very poor negotiation skills or the lack of will by the American administration.
Yeah, Relik, actually the question was for you. I wanted to hear your input on this as well.
I think to begin with, they had no Air Force to speak of, very little as far as anti-aircraft missiles, and the only military hits they took was to part of the ballistic missile program, which means that it'll take them some time to regroup and start over with the ballistic program. But they had them hid in the mountains, and right now we know that they're digging ways to have them come out. And are bulldozing the entrances that were bombed so that the missiles inside can be used. So they hadn't taken a severe blow. Not a lot of their soldiers were killed. They had no infantry losses, no tank losses. So as far as the targets during that war are concerned, yes, they have taken a beating, but the targets were of certain kind. It wasn't a real war, as the Iranian army didn't fight at all, didn't have anybody to fight because there were no boots on the ground. So if we look at it that way, they haven't lost much. What they did lose was a lot of their industrial capability, and the fact that they're unable to get ships coming into their ports, Bandar Abbas and others, means that they have to move manufactured goods or raw materials through other places, such as the Caspian Sea, or through land via Pakistan, Afghanistan, etc. So as long as they're not hungry, they're going to hold on. And as we get close to the November elections, the appetite, the Trump appetite for war is going to decrease even more. So hold on, it'll take some time.
And I want to turn now to the situation in Lebanon as well. Danny, you mentioned at the beginning of the hour, we're in this ceasefire, but just today, Hezbollah launched 2 rockets at Israel, and the IDF announced the deaths of 2 more soldiers. That's 18 soldiers killed since the beginning of this, this ceasefire. Israeli young men and women are dying in Lebanon, and Israel's hands are being tied by the United States. So again, this issue of, the United States now essentially running the war here in Israel. What do you make of this, and what can or what should Israel do now?
I think the only way that Israel can get out of this imbroglio is for Prime Minister Netanyahu to have a one-on-one talk with President Trump and describe the situation, and also explain why not allowing Israel to use or unleash its full extent of its power is not just an Israeli interest, it's also an American interest, because so long as the Hezbollah is strong in Lebanon, there won't be any peaceful negotiations between Lebanon and Israel, which are undergoing now, but it will yield no result until and unless the Hezbollah is just kept in bay. This is an American interest, and at this point, also the fact that Iran is calling the shots and is squeezing the United States to press Israel not to use its full power against Hezbollah, it's also actually compromising American position in general vis-a-vis the Hormuz and everything that goes around it, including, of course, the nuclear. This is not a way to negotiate, especially not against a regime which has suffered so many blows. And right now, it's just the time to use the right levers, and I don't see this is happening.
And Relik, back to you on Lebanon. What do you make of sort of the strategic situation in Lebanon? Israeli soldiers are essentially situated inside Lebanon, situated on the border, very limited in what they can do. We heard the IDF chief of staff essentially tell the government, if you're going to reach a ceasefire, do it quickly because, soldiers are dying. What do you make of the situation in Lebanon today?
Well, the fact that we have some casualties on a weekly base does not mean that we're losing a war. In a war, there are casualties. But I think after 3 years, the Israeli public is looking for answers. And at this time, strategically, we are actually paying some price for the removal of the nuclear threat to Israel. So if you look at it in that way, the price is bearable because at this time the United States would not be willing to put another, I would say, block on their negotiations, such as the Hezbollah. I'm not sure that Netanyahu can convince the American president, to give him a free hand. But Israel can move diplomatically, for instance, by creating some understanding and a pact with the Syrians. Remember, we're occupying part of the Golan Heights, the Syrian Golan Heights, and the Hermon. And we're putting pressure on the Syrian president, who might be willing to take a blow at Hezbollah. They have a long-standing feud with Hezbollah, and they're sitting very close to the Bekaa Valley. So if Israel can strike a deal and use some leverage, diplomatic leverage, that would be a smart move. I'm afraid at this particular time, the Israeli politics is in such a limbo that it's very difficult for anybody, including, of course, Netanyahu, to maneuver freely. So he's really in a bind here, both politically inside politics in Israel and outside diplomacy outside of Israel.
You know, Dani, speaking about the diplomacy, you know, as a former Israeli ambassador to the United States, we did hear some very sort of, I would say, historic remarks from the Lebanese president. And we see that these negotiations are ongoing in Washington, D.C. What's your assessment of these diplomatic talks? Do you think that they will actually lead to normalization between the two countries?
Well, this is the idea. There is certainly a mutual interest, both of Lebanon and Israel. And Israel has no territorial claims over Lebanon. So I think it is a situation which lends itself to really peaceful relations, except that Hezbollah, which has pretty much hijacked the state of Lebanon, the Lebanese people, they are, for all practical purposes, an Iranian military organ. And I'm so much as the president of Lebanon wants to make peace with Israel, the question is he capable to overcome the Hezbollah, which basically threatens a civil war in Lebanon, if indeed there will be any continued negotiations which will result in peace between Israel and Lebanon. And the only way, in my mind, to curb and actually neutralize the very nefarious influence of Hezbollah is by really closing in on them and certainly not allowing continued supplies and finances to Hezbollah.
And Relik, you know, I want to ask you, because we all heard the comments, you know, that President Trump even said when he called the prime minister, you know, crazy, that he wanted to bomb the Dahye, of course, the Hezbollah stronghold. Now, what many around the world maybe don't understand or are unaware of is, you know, the extent to which Hezbollah is embedded inside of Lebanon, inside of southern Lebanon and in Beirut as well. You know, as a former air base commander, you've seen these operations playing out, Israel's, you know, striking in Lebanon. Can you perhaps give the viewers a bit of an explanation as to, you know, they keep hearing that Israel is striking Lebanon and they ask, you know, how much more can you strike? What other targets are even left standing? So can you maybe, you know, elaborate on that for our viewers?
Well, their main stronghold is in the Bekaa Valley, which is largely populated by Shia farmers, etc. And they had a continuous flow of weaponry coming through the Syrian border close by. They've built bunkers where they hid their plants, where they made their rockets. They had a free hand in Beirut port and airport to import anything that Iran could send them. This is curbed at this time, and the amount of munition that they have is decreasing, and the flow from Syria has stopped. So generally speaking, except for firing a few missiles, we've been able to hit their ability to for mass firings of missiles and drones. So what we're seeing now is droplets of drones and rockets that are actually terrorizing the north and terrorizing the soldiers. I shouldn't say terrorizing the soldiers because this is their duty, and this is part of the war. But the amount of damage that Lebanon inflicts now in Israel is more economic and cultural, I mean our culture, rather than real threats and real hits. They're probably not able to do that. But be it as it may, even one rocket per day puts Israel in a dire situation where we have no answer. And even if we got a free hand and went into Lebanon further north, an occasional firing of a rocket here and there would always be possible. So I'm afraid only pressure by the Syrians and the Lebanese military, or what can be part of it, and maybe pressure on the international scene on their monetary capabilities that the ambassador mentioned before, could take us forward. Unfortunately, we're not seeing this being used lately or since quite a few years. And so Israel should use whatever it can diplomatically, economically, financially to put pressure on Hezbollah and get out of this limbo that we're seeing at this time.
Absolutely. Ambassador Dani Ayalon, Brigadier General Relik Shafir, thank you so much for joining us today and for your analysis as we mark 100 days of this conflict.